My name is Frank Ally. I'm a California attorney primarily focusing on family law issues. Now let's get started. So we're talking about community and separate property in this series of episodes. Let's face it, guys, nobody ever gets married thinking they're going to get divorced, okay? It happens, but nobody plans on it. So what ends up happening is people get married, they have separate property, they have separate income, they have community income, and they tend to put it all together. So we have a joint account. So during the marriage, Fred goes and sells the house that he owned prior to marriage and puts that money into this joint account, and Wilma cashes out some CDs or puts her inheritance in the account. And so we now have this account that has ongoing community income. We have some of Fred's separate property money. We have some of Wilma's separate money. How do we know when the divorce happens who gets what out of this account? Because when you commingle money, there's a presumption in California law that everything in that account is community property unless you can prove otherwise. The way you prove it is by tracing, and there's a number of different tracing methods, but it's I guess the way I would describe it is you have a bucket of liquid assets, cash, money. Inside that bucket, you have three compartments. One bucket is husband's separate property, one compartment is wife's separate property, and one bucket is community. The general rule is that community expenses are paid from the community portion of that joint account. So you can set up a multi-column spreadsheet that says, here's the community money that's coming to the account, and here's the expenses that were paid out via the community, and you can control what happens inside that compartment inside the bucket. Because once the community money is expended, we're now subsidizing community living expenses with separate property. And there's no reimbursement for paying for groceries or paying for a vacation. If your separate property is used for that, it goes away. Even if the next month enough community money comes in, that money wasn't available to pay for the stuff, your separate property gets paid down. Likewise, we're going to learn in a future video on 2640 reimbursements that if you take money and you use your separate property to improve a house or a piece of property, you have a right to reimburse your separate property for the money you used on community improvements. But you have to first, if you're getting that money out of a joint commingled account, you're going to have to prove that the money that's coming out of that bucket of that joint account came from the particular compartment where your separate property resided. The process of doing this is called tracing. And it arises out of a case called Marriage of Walrath, which talks about how money can come from various places and be traced backwards to separate property sources, even though it takes a number of steps going forward. We'll do a video eventually on Walrath because it is very important. But at this point, what you need to understand is when you put separate property into a joint account, you're commingling. The burden of proof becomes on you to trace that money still belonging to you at the end of the day. I'm Frank Ally. I'm your ally in family law. This is complicated. Get an attorney to help you with this. Thank you for listening.